From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
Well, we're back, and I'm very optimistic, Kurt. Dale Carter with Kurt Wheeler. We're back in the studio here in Raytown. A little dicey to get to it. The roads weren't exactly plowed.
Yeah, Raytown is like bottom of the totem pole, yeah. It seems like.
you got to work on that. You have an HOA around here somewhere that you can talk
HOA.
to? Yeah.
Maybe I'll run for city council. Or,
you should.
You never know.
9 years of my life I'll never get back. So I am optimistic, Kurt. I'm wearing the Royals hoodie today because spring training has begun. I'm convinced that this last burst of winter we just had in the great Midwest and a great portion of the country is behind us. We'll get into all of that. But first, let's tell you about Bob Watson. He's bringing you this podcast, local State Farm agent for 50 years. You can find Bob in his office at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. Reach him on the phone at 816-229-7878. And even if he's not there, he has a great staff ready to take care of you. Auto, home, life, bundle your home and car insurance, and save even more. He's licensed in both Missouri and Kansas. Like a good neighbor, Bob Watson and State Farm is there. We ask you at this point to help us spread the word in this crazy world we're living in. Even though the election went our way, I think the world is still crazy, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah, and some people are getting even crazier. But I think we're trending in the right direction, so things feel pretty good right now. But yeah, check us out on YouTube and Rumble for the video podcast. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, leave a comment, and that all helps us with the algorithm, so we do appreciate it. And then you can find the audio podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to follow us on Facebook as well.
I should have brought like a stuffed groundhog or something. We should do stunts on this podcast where we could like blow up a groundhog or something just to take out our frustrations.
Like the old shock jock days?
Oh, yeah. Why not, man? We could do it because the weather has definitely been crazy. I was out of town in Nashville, and anytime Nashville gets any kind of measurable snow, it is the end of the world as you know it. Mm-hmm. They have no snow removal equipment in Nashville. They have to like rent it from, hillbillies who may have a plow in the front of their truck.
That was like the last snowstorm, or I think it was maybe that big one that we got, or somewhere in between. They got snow in like New Orleans.
Yeah.
And that was,
I think, panhandle of Florida got snow.
Yeah, that was the first time they got snow in like 30 years or something crazy like that. So I have a couple friends down there that were sending pictures. It was nuts.
So you can really rib your liberal friends and say, how's that global warming working out?
Yeah.
And then let me tell you what they'll say. It's not global warming. It's climate change.
That's right.
It's climate change.
Get it right, Dale.
Yeah. So last Thursday, while I was out of town, Kansas City broke a 100-plus-year-old record, 10 below zero. 10 below zero. The old record was like 8 above zero. And this was set in 1918, the end of World War I. How mechanized were we at that point? Were we ending the world as we know it? So this is what I tell people, and it drives them absolutely crazy. Your argument when somebody comes at you and says, it's climate change, or Biden goes, oh, I can't believe nobody believes in climate change. I believe in climate change. Don't you believe in climate change?
Depends on what you mean by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have a 5 billion-year-old rock that started as lava.
Right.
Don't you think that over the course of its 5 billion-year-old life, it's been changing?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's probably likely, yeah.
So when we look back at records, we have records that go back 200 years. 200. Now, I'm not a math guy, and I've said that many times. 200 years versus 5 billion. It's a big number, right?
Yeah.
This planet is constantly going through change. It will go through change. And, when you think about it, I was watching a show about Isaac Newton. I don't know why it was on, and I'm a history buff. And they were talking about when Isaac Newton was around that sunspot activity had increased. Now, when was Isaac Newton around? 15th century, 16th century, something like that?
Yeah, let me look that up.
Yeah, look that up, because they were talking about sunspot activity. And if you were like on an alien ship and you came to this galaxy and you looked at the size of the sun relative to this little blue and green marble that's floating around out there, it would astound you that we think that what looks from space like little ants running around here has any impact at all.
Yeah. Isaac Newton was born 1643, died 1727.
Okay, so 16th, 18th century, somewhere in there.
He lived to be 84, which I feel like was pretty rare back then, right?
Well, he probably took care of himself. He probably ate right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my whole point in this is, yes, we have climate change going on, and humans will have to evolve. We're going to have to, find a way to live in it, or we won't make it. Yeah. Human activity on this 5 billion year old rock goes back, how many years? Depending on what you believe, how many years?
A lot. But yeah, I mean, you can look at things that are very measurable, like environmental deaths, like deaths related to natural disasters and things like that, and it's an exponential decrease down. Not because of any particular environmental factors, but because of our ability to adapt has gotten so much better. We're not certainly in the West and other places in the world, we're not worried about where our next meal is coming from. We're not worried about, shelter, which is a blessing. I mean, thank God. But, that's something that we should not take for granted. And we should, be very grateful for that and not complaining, as Westerners about plastic straws or whatever.
Right. And if it were an existential threat, like the left wants you to believe, why aren't they taking action? Why are they saying this on one hand and then getting on their private jets and flying everywhere?
And buying beachfront property.
Yeah. Why would you do that
Yeah.
if it's going to fall in the ocean?
Absolutely.
So, if you believe it, I could have some respect for them if they followed through. If instead of flying in a private jet to get to Europe, if they got on a sailboat and, went over to Europe.
Yeah.
Use that wind, use that solar. But they don't. They just preach it and they want you to believe it. I don't believe it. I believe that change is happening. I believe that humans will find a way to adapt. And I believe in the all-in energy strategy that President Trump has brought back. And I think that ultimately we will find something that works better for the environment. And I think our environment is cleaner today in the United States than it was in 1900, 1910, 1920. It is cleaner. But it is a global sphere that we're talking about. And if you can't get India and China on board and Russia, what are we even talking about?
Yeah. I think it's primarily India and China are two of the biggest. I mean, they just throw their trash. You can look up the videos from India. It's crazy, crazy. Because there's so many people there. It's like, what is it, 1.5 billion people in India, something like that, in an area that's maybe half the size of the continental United States. It's a lot of people in a very small area, and they're all just, throwing their trash. Not all, of course, but too many. Well, throwing their trash in the river and, pooping on the street or whatever they do.
Bottom line is baseball season is here. I think what we've just been through is winter's last gasp. As I told my wife this morning before I came over to do the podcast, just think, as cold as it is right now, this is as cold as it's going to be. We're going to warm up from here. Right? Going to be in the 40s as we record this. It's going to be, when's this post? Monday?
Monday, yeah.
Monday's high is 60.
60, yep.
We'll take that. It'll feel like summer.
Yep.
So there you go. A little bit of optimism from Dale Carter's America. Somebody else who can give you some optimism is Dr. Mark Taramina with Midwest GI Health and Wellness. If you'll go get that colonoscopy. I was talking to friends in Nashville, and I don't know how the subject of colon cancer and colonoscopies comes up, but I was talking to
I think you just bring it up everywhere you go, right?
Do I?
Yeah.
So that I've got something to tie in Dr. Taramina. Yeah. Would I do that, Kurt?
I'm just imagining you like everywhere you go, just like, have you gotten your colonoscopy
yet? and what I'm hearing is, I don't want to do that whole prep thing. I don't want to do that prep thing. I'm like, would you rather die of colon cancer and leave behind people who would miss you? The prep thing is a piece of cake. I just did it myself. 45 is the new 50. If you know somebody 45 or older and they have not had that first colonoscopy yet, lean on them to get them to call Dr. Mark Taramina at Midwest GI Health and Wellness. You can reach him in the office in Lee's Summit at 816-836-2200. They are on the web at midwestgihealth.com. Get that colonoscopy. One of two things will happen. They'll find some polyps, they'll send them off, and if it is cancer, they've got a treatment plan. And if you treat it early, it'll save your life. The other thing is, clean as a whistle, come back and see us in 10 years. The worst thing that you can do is wait and wait and wait until it's full-blown colon cancer, and then you've got a real problem on your hands. Midwest GI Health and Wellness, one of the fine sponsors here at Dale Carter's America. Another sponsor that we have is Medicare Simplified KC. kc.com as folks are approaching 65, especially with a change in administration. That there's always change that comes in when the White House changes hands, and there will be changes to Medicare as well. It's already complicated enough. What changes are out there that affect you? That's what you need to find out. Kirk Doris and Lori Hawker navigate all the traps of Medicare, and they help you get it done to find out which plan you need to be on, which supplements you may or may not need. They've got all the right answers for you for your particular situation. Medicare Simplified KC is at 3600 South Nolan Road, Suite F in Independence. Reach them on the phone at 816-701-6661. And again, that website, MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. Boy, when they picked the name of this company, they nailed it, because everybody knows Medicare's a mess, and when you can simplify it and tell you where it is, you've done it all in one website, MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. Give them a call and let them help you with this. Okay, so DOGE continues. The DOGE Deep Dive is what I've called this. And, there's the actual stuff that's going on here, and there's the silly stuff that's going on here. And I'm sure you've seen this. The president of Argentina giving a gift to Elon Musk.
Yeah, I heard about this, but I haven't seen it yet, so we'll watch it together.
President Milei has a gift for me.
Javier Milei from Argentina. You guys know who that is, right? Why don't we bring him out?
Yeah.
In case you're just listening, he's bringing out a large chainsaw.
Thank you.
I don't think it's running.
It says something in Spanish on it. Viva la something.
Yeah. Well, this guy apparently cut a lot of stuff down in Argentina.
The chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw.
Yeah, he's having a lot of fun.
The level of autism in this guy is just
for
off
Elon
the charts. Yeah.
He's definitely awkward. But
he's a full-blown autist, man.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
Pull up what I put on our Facebook page this morning. I put a little meme up there of Rod Serling from The Twilight Zone, because this is one of the topics we're going to talk about today is, what hill do you want to die on? And this is a hill that the Democrats want to die on. We're going to get into it a little bit later when we get to the crazy Dems, which has become like a recurrent category here on this. There you go. Yeah. So imagine, if you will, a government so corrupt it tries to convince the people that accountability is illegal.
Yeah.
Man, what are they hiding? Because they are hiding the stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's people like Nancy Pelosi, Yeah. I mean, the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker is a thing. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that.
Yeah, there's like a whole thing. I think you can actually trade on it now. I'm not sure, but there's a whole website and like Twitter account that just follows Nancy Pelosi's stock trades, and it's like basically unsolicited financial advice, because she's made so much money.
Oh, yeah, because she's an insider, no doubt. Yeah. So
Adam Schiff is out there, complaining. God. He's one of the worst ones, too.
Yeah.
So.
See, if you watch the video of the podcast, you get my eye rolls, and the eye rolls happen quite a bit. So what I've read so far, in 1 month, savings of $55 billion with a B.
Yep.
$55 billion in 1 month. And the stuff that they are uncovering, it's incredible. Do we have vampires in America? Are they real? Okay. Musk, in a post on X, features a chart indicating there are more than 20 million listed with ages 100 and higher that we're paying Social Security to.
Yeah. I'll read the tweet here. According to the Social Security database, these are the numbers of people in each age bucket with the death field set to false. Maybe Twilight is real, and there are a lot of vampires collecting Social Security. Age range, it goes starts at 0 to 9 and then goes up from there. We get to 100 to 109, 4.7 million, 110 to 119, 3.6 million, 120 to 129, 3.4 million, 130 to 139, 3.9 million, going all the way up. Still, 150 to 159, we're still at 1.3 million. So there's approximately...
And you got two really old people in there. 240 to 249.
Yeah.
And what's that last one? I can't read
360 to 369.
it. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be an old dude.
Yeah, they're really taking those youth pills or whatever they have now.
Probably not an old dude because men don't live that long.
No, women. Well, yeah, women. What is it, like a year and a half or 2 years longer on
Something
average?
like
Something
that.
like that.
So if we've got somebody who's 360 years old in this country, I'm betting it's a woman.
Let's start doing medical experiments on them so we can figure out what their secret is.
So what is the problem with doing this deep dive? I don't understand it.
Well, I mean,
didn't we vote for that? Didn't we vote for, hey,
Yeah.
let's get to the bottom of this?
Yeah. Well, not only did we vote for it, but the vast majority of the American people want it. And it's just the right thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
on top of that, but
I love this. This happened this week. Stephen Miller was at the podium, and he took a question. Stephen Miller, one of the advisors to Donald Trump, and he took the question from the reporter. I don't have the reporter's question, but we have Miller's answer to it, where it was like, when Biden was president, nobody ever asked the question of who's running the country, right? But now people are asking if Elon Musk is running the country, and by the way, nobody elected him. How do you respond to that? And Stephen Miller gave a poli-sci 101, maybe even 7th grade civics lesson, because when we started the podcast, you remember this, we broke the Constitution apart. I love the Constitution. It was written so long ago, yet it was written in a way that if it doesn't apply in our current century, it can be amended, it can be changed, it can grow to meet our needs. Yet there are things in there that are pretty crystal clear that are not being followed. And anyway, Stephen Miller gave a great lesson in civics here.
Very harsh things about some of our media friends. Yes, it is true that many of the people in this room for 4 years failed to cover the fact that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and was not running the country. It is also true that many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation, right? Judges are appointed, members of Congress are elected at the district or state level, just one man. And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for. So Americans vote for radical FBI reform, and FBI agents say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote for radical reform on our energy policies, but EPA bureaucrats say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote to end DEI, racist DEI policies, and lawyers in the Department of Justice say they don't want to change. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American people. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, how clear is that?
that's a good answer. This guy Stephen Miller is he's a real like poly nerd, you can tell by watching him. He's like, poli-sci major, like through and through DC guy.
I told you, I felt like I was back in, poli-sci 101 in college.
Yeah.
He'd be a great professor of that. So federal workers are losing their jobs. Welcome to the real world. The federal government and many state and local governments, I was in local government and I remember this so well. There were people in the bowels of the building who said, we'll outlast any elected official who comes in here. We're just going to keep doing what we do. And firing those people literally took an act of Congress. You just could not do it. So I have a theory here, and I don't know this for sure, but I have a theory that Trump has a strategy here. He's setting up test cases to go to that Supreme Court, which is reliably 5-4, sometimes 6-3, and trying to get some things done. And I did a little research on this. I didn't know about this. Maybe you knew about it. There's a case that goes back to the FDR administration called Humphrey's Executor versus the U.S. in 1935. Now, here's a little history lesson. Stephen Miller just gave you a poli-sci lesson. Let me give you a history lesson. You go back to 1932, I think it was, when FDR came in. It was somewhere in the 30s. He served, well, he was elected for 4 terms, so he was there for a long time. FDR came in as the country was going through the Great Depression, and he wanted to come in and clean house, much like Donald Trump came in and wants to clean house. So he tried to fire the chairman of the FTC, a holdover from the Hoover administration. The guy's name was Humphreys. Well, the Supreme Court, when this made it all the way to the Supreme Court, by the time he had fired this guy and it made it to the Supreme Court, this Humphreys guy had died, so his executor pushed the lawsuit forward against the United States. The court created a carve-out that basically said the president can fire certain people and other bureaucrats are protected and can only be fired. I said by an act of Congress. That's not true, but there has to be legitimate ABC reasons. It's not fired for cause. So the leaders change, but the bureaucracy rolls on. And that's the point that Trump is making here, is like you could change the president, but what's happening at the federal government level is not going to change, as Stephen Miller just lined out.
Yeah, and I mean, how many thousands of people work for these departments and agencies, And I think the only legitimate argument I could see on the other side is just the logistical one. Like, if you're going to just clean house every time there's a new president, that's a lot, to get all these old people out and new people in, it would create a lot of headache. But that's just a testament to the growth of the swamp, as we call it,
Right.
That shouldn't be a problem. You should have a small enough agency where you can do that, a small enough level of staffing where, you have a handful of people, they work for the president, they leave, and then the new president comes in and brings in his people. So it's just a testament to the kind of bloated nature of the whole thing,
Well, it's what ought to be 100% clear out of all this is that you can have a bureaucracy that carries out the mission of whoever the elected officials are, but they've got to carry out the mission of the elected officials. They've got to be in positions where, okay, this leader changed, this policy changed, and now our job has changed.
Right.
Imagine that in radio. You get a new general manager who wants you to focus on this, but you say, screw you, you can't fire me. I'm going to keep doing what I was doing before.
Right. Or the military would be another kind of similar example, because there's probably plenty of people in the military who, even leadership, generals, admirals, things like that, who either currently with Trump or previously with Biden were not fans of what was going on and, not personally interested or personally agreed with what was going on, but they had to bite the bullet and do what their boss, the commander-in-chief, told them to do. And you see cases of people who are in uniform and they're on social media complaining about the president, or, God forbid, in their official duties, they disobey, and they go AWOL or something like that. I mean, that's a big, big deal in the military. You'll get, court-martialed, dishonorable discharge. I mean,
end up in Leavenworth. Yeah. And not in a good way.
Yeah. So, I don't see why we can't apply the same thing to the IRS or to the CIA or to the NSA or any of these other, especially, things that are of national security interest, like the Pentagon and things like that. I mean, it should be the same, but it's not, unfortunately.
Are we a democratic republic or are we a bureaucracy? And I think that's what the test is right here.
Right.
And hopefully we're going to come out of it as a democratic republic. And when the people make a decision to go one way or the other way, it's not the tail wagging the dog here, which is what it's been for a long time. So we'll see if this winds its way toward the Supreme Court. I suppose it will. And when, liberals have their hair on fire about things Donald Trump is doing, it's not about being a dictator and thinking he's going to be able to just, do whatever he does and everybody's going to follow suit. It's about test cases for future administrations so they don't have to deal with what he is dealing with. Article 2 is quite clear on this. Again, as Stephen Miller said, you can pull out the Constitution and look at it. You know, maybe you'd get John Kennedy giving you a little test on that, like he does federal judges who don't seem to know what the articles or the amendments are to the Constitution. But Article 2 is quite clear on this. We have an executive, not an executive branch. We have an executive. As he said, power is vested in a executive, one executive. And he should be able to run the executive branch as he sees fit. And if the country goes the other way and loses its way and wants to go back toward the left and back toward what Joe Biden wanted to do, the bureaucracy should follow that too. And we should, wreck the country as bad as Biden wrecked it so that it goes back the other way. That's the way this country goes, left and right.
Absolutely. And the most recent one that people are talking about this week is the IRS. I don't know if you've been seeing some of the news on this, but they cut 6,000 jobs last week, and I think there's going to be more coming.
Some of that happened in Kansas City, too.
Yep. And, talking about people defending the bureaucracy and defending the spin, I mean, this article from NPR I picked kind of intentionally because some of their commentary here is pretty interesting. Landing right in the middle of tax season, the job cuts are expected to make it harder for taxpayers to get questions answered and for the government to collect all the money it's owed. Boo-hoo.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for people losing their jobs. I've been in radio long enough to see the heyday of radio go to the point where, most companies are out there burning the furniture trying to stay alive, and the bloated federal government just keeps to go rolling on down the road.
Right. Yep, absolutely. So screw the IRS. They can, learn the code, get a new job.
Exactly. Michael Schroer is one of our fine sponsors here, and you can see if you log on to our Facebook page, you can always see Michael liking something that we've put up or commenting on something that we've done. He doesn't talk a lot about his job, so we get to talk about his job. He is the real estate guy in eastern Jackson County. Michael Schroer. Know that name because spring is coming up, and spring is when you get the fever to get a new house. Check out your life circumstances. Maybe you're going from apartment to first home to a bigger home to a smaller home. Maybe you've got a piece of land you want to build something on. This is the guy you need. Michael Schroer, RE/MAX Elite in Lee's Summit. You can reach him at 816-373-8400. You can also get him at 816-520-9342. That is his personal cell phone, I think.
It is.
But
that's what it appears.
But he lists it, and that's okay.
Yep.
You can call him and say, hey, Mike, love that you're on board at Dale Carter's America. We're thinking about moving. You got a house you want to sell, a house you want to buy. He can take care of both, and spring is going to be a great time to get that done as we start to see this economy come roaring back to life. Michael Schroer, his broker is RE/MAX Elite in Lee's Summit, and you should check him out if you're thinking about moving.
Tremendous people.
Yeah, tremendous person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like the executive in Article 2. The power to move you is vested in one person, and his name is Michael Schroer. And then you're going to need unless you're really, really rich, you're going to need a mortgage on that house. And the Red Carpet Lender is where you need to go next. The redcarpetlender.com. That's my buddy Chad Taylor. Isn't he an attractive man?
Look at that haircut.
He likes to tell people he's attractive. He's a karaoke guy. He's an Elvis impersonator. I mean, he's got a lot of extensions to his personality.
Man of many talents.
Yeah.
Many talents.
But the best talent he has is to find you the right mortgage for your circumstances. So check him out at theredcarpetlender.com. Rates are coming down. I've been following this. Rates are coming down. So it's spring. Maybe you're looking for a new house. You need to get that house financed. That's where the Red Carpet Lender comes in. And if you've got a lot of serious debt and you want to dig your way out of it, I was talking to Chad about this not that long ago. He may have a plan that's going to fit your needs, and you don't have to have perfect credit. He can go as low as 580 on the credit score. You don't need 20% down. Most loan programs are 0 to 5% down. Chad, like most of our sponsors here, is licensed in Missouri and Kansas. He'll come to you. You can go to him. Just check him out online. All you need to know is the website, theredcarpetlender.com. Chad Taylor. And he'll waive lender fees for veterans as a thank you for your service to this great country, which we thank you for as well. Okay, let's have an honest discussion about government spending, because I have some thoughts on this, Kurt. The Constitution, again, is very clear on the power of the purse. Who controls the purse? Let me give you a Civics 101 lesson. Who controls the purse?
Congress.
It's more specifically.
The House of Representatives.
Very good. Ding, you got it. They control the power of the purse. It does rest with Congress, and that is the body that continues to spend. And as a body, both Republicans and Democrats, they are gutless. They can't do it. You know, we talk about presidents who've done this before, and we're going to play a clip a little bit later on that's going to show you that Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were, at least in talking points, serious about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. The last time we had a balanced budget in this country, do you know when that was?
96?
Yeah. 90, well, coming out of 94, 95, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But the trigger for that was the Republicans taking control of the House, which they hadn't done for 50 years, and Bill Clinton being a Democrat president. He and Newt Gingrich worked together to get this done because the gutless in Congress are the Republicans.
Yeah.
How long have they had power? We're still spending like drunken sailors. They are gutless.
And they're still talking about more money to Ukraine and Israel and, you know, everything else. I mean, they're on one hand, they're applauding the DOGE cuts. They're applauding the exposure that's been made to, you know, some of these programs that are just ridiculous, impossible to defend. But
where's the legislation to cement this?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got majorities in Congress in both the House and the Senate. So you could pass a bill in the House with no Democrats.
Right.
Send it right over to the Senate with no Democrats. Send it to the White House, and Donald Trump would sign it.
Yep.
And we'd end a lot of this crap right now. I want to take you back in time. I don't remember the date on this. You could probably look it up and find it. But the Base Closure Commission. Do you remember that?
No.
We had a lot of bases, military bases in this country that were obsolete. Didn't need them anymore. And the gutless, feckless Congress could not stand up and say, you know what, we don't need that base anymore. Let's close it down and take the political hit. Because these people, you know, as Stephen Miller pointed out, especially in the House, they're elected in districts. The Senate is elected in states, and states love to get this money. They can bitch about all day long that we've got this huge debt, we've got this huge deficit, but trust me, when a congressman gets elected, one of his top tier things he wants to get done is, what does he want to do? He wants to bring federal money back to his state and or district. So Congress could not man up and woman up, I guess, and close these bases that were obsolete. So they had the Base Closure Commission to give them cover.
The first one, this is just from Wikipedia, but the first commission was in 1988. According to Wikipedia, the 1988 Base Realignment and Closure Commission. And then this is everything that was included in that one. And then there was another one in 91.
Right.
With all these bases. And then in 93, 95.
Yeah.
And 2005.
So the gutless congressman can go back to his district and say, oh, wasn't me. It was the Base Closure Commission. They're the ones who did it. I still love you, and I'm still going to bring back all that pork that I can find, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a win-win for the gutless congressman. And now they've got Elon Musk out there, and he's providing cover for them. The gutless Congress people, and again, I say this for both Republicans and Democrats. Democrats, at least we know what they are, right? They're the people like Bernie Sanders who think we don't spend nearly enough. If Bernie Sanders were a dictator for a day, we'd be spending $10 trillion.
Yeah.
That's his plan. I'm not making that up. His plan was to spend $10 trillion. I don't know where he's going to get that money. It doesn't exist. I guess they just keep printing it or whatever. So, you know, the Democrats are the Democrats. The Republicans are the ones I hold their feet to the fire because they should know better.
Yeah, and also, you know, it just goes to the cuts and everything that are needed. People on the Republican side a lot of times will say, well, we need our military. You know, like they'll make an exemption for the military, which is true. I mean, we do need, you know, some form of military spending. Right. But like, to pretend that there's not cuts that can be made there too, you know, in the Pentagon, in you know, in the military branches themselves. So yeah, I mean, I think the base closure thing is an interesting case study on that. There's actually one that was by my house in Pennsylvania, we had Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base Willow Grove right up the street, and that was part of the 2005 closure. And it's just overgrown with grass now.
Right.
They're not doing anything with it. But
Well, Richards Gebauer Air Station was in the Kansas City area, and I think that was closed too as part of the base closure thing. Yeah, the military, it is one of those handful of things I think that the federal government ought to be doing, but even it ought to be under scrutiny as far as spending goes,
Right.
and it needs to keep up with the times, right? We don't have frigates anymore, right? Full-masted frigates anymore because they wouldn't work. Now we have nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
There may come a time when they won't work. Military's got to keep up with the times and not just keep spending something because the factory is in a certain congressman's district and he doesn't want to give up the pork.
yeah, that's a lot of it. That's a lot of it.
Well, and that leads me to this. And, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, two very different presidents, but they had one thing in common. When they went to Congress, they asked for something that they had in their individual states that the federal government doesn't have. In fact, 44 of our 50 state governors have the line item veto. Now, can you imagine? We wouldn't even need DOGE at this point. If you had the ability for a president to look at the budget and just highlight the things in it that are pure pork, pure pork, and go, front, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. Nuclear submarines, we're going to keep those. We're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, we're not going to send condoms to Gaza, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to mark all these things out. Then you would need a congressional override of each one of those vetoes, which would never happen.
Yeah. They don't have the patience for that to go through line by line.
We need a federal line item veto.
Yeah.
And we're probably never going to get it unless things just continue to get worse. Because if they get worse from this point, if we can't do this with Donald Trump in the White House, a slim majority in the House, and a majority in the Senate, it's never going to get done.
Yeah. And part of the federal responsibility in this, too, is for the president and the executive branch to use the bully pulpit that they have, to encourage or, put the thumb on the scale because, they don't have the power of the purse, but they control how it's spent in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where
Did we have a message?
Yeah, that probably popped up. That was a little notification there. Ignore.
Who knew? I mean, maybe in the podcast we can start taking requests.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I mean, I think Trump does a really good job of that. He was at this governor's thing. You were talking a little bit about this before the show, but I don't think you had seen this clip, but he's talking about the executive order for women, transgender women in women's sports.
Don't do that. Don't bend the knee to them. It's biological boys playing on the girls' team. When you bend the language, you're giving into them.
Well, when I say transgender women, I mean men. It's just the specificity.
Pretty
of what
simple
we're talking
stuff.
about.
Biological boys can't play on the girls' team.
Well, you could even say, saying biological boys is a bit of a cop out. Just say boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why biological?
Okay, let me make it even simpler. You got a wiener, you're not playing on the girls' team.
Yeah. But so he gets into it with the governor of Maine here because the governor of Maine, I guess, is pushing back and doesn't want to do it or whatever. This is Trump at his very best. This is stuff that he does that no other president would
This,
do.
by the way, you should say, is in front of governors from around the country, Republicans and Democrats.
Yep.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here? The governor?
Where you
of
at, Maine?
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state.
See you in
Good.
court.
I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
I mean, like
that is classic
no
Trump.
other candidate would do that.
No.
They're too, he doesn't give a shit, man.
Yeah, he doesn't. It's like he's not running for re-election, right?
Yeah. And I mean, he was kind of like that in his first term too, but he's even more so like that now. He just call people out to their faces, and that's what we need. We need somebody to, it's not, you're not being like mean for the sake of being mean, but it's politics. You got to get stuff done. You got to call people out. Don't play Mr. Nice Guy. It's not about going to parties and clinking your wine glasses. Make some enemies.
Right.
Come on.
The one thing that he said in that clip that I don't like is you won't get any federal funding. So I had some optimism that he was actually going to be the first president to do what he said on the campaign trail and close the Department of Education. But like every president before him, he's using it to force his will, right? Yeah. And he's basically using the Department of Education funding to force his will. And he shouldn't have to do that. He's made an executive order. It should go to court, and it'll wind its way through the Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court would back him up that, boys should not be on the girls' team. That is so simple. That's one of those 90-10 issues out there.
Right.
Yeah. So, but what he's doing is he's going back to, okay, you don't want to do it, you won't get any federal funding. Yeah. They shouldn't get any federal funding anyway.
Yeah. Screw him. But, no, I mean, he has talked about the Department of Education thing. I mean, he's still teasing it. I don't know where they're at with that, if he's actually going to do it or if he's just teasing it, but they have been teasing it still, so we'll see.
Well, I hope they get it done because that's one of those where she's right. See you in court. We'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court, and it will end where it ends. And I think it will end with, again, 90-10 being we don't – I don't even believe –
That'll be an easy one. I'll see you in court.
It's a layup. And I wish you well after your run at governor because you'll never be elected again.
You're not a nice person.
All right, Royal Roofing and Solar. They bring you part of this podcast. Austin Watterson and his fantastic company. They have changed the website to just one. So if you're ready for roofing, you're ready for solar, combining those two things, roofedbyroyal.com. Roofed, ROOFEDBYROYAL.com. Need a new roof? Once we get out of this winter that we've had, you may well need a new roof. And with the storms that we've had and all the different things that have happened, perhaps your insurance will even pay for it. Let them get out and do the roof inspection. They did a new roof on my house, and I absolutely love it. And I think we're going to make it through this season just fine. If you're in your forever home, if Michael Shore has found you your ultimate house, solar might make a lot of sense. And if not, it may not make a lot of sense. The bottom line there is don't be sold on something you can't use. Mike Dale is the solar expert at Royal Roofing and Solar. He'll take you through the traps of 16 questions. And after we get through those 16 questions, you'll know if you're a candidate for solar and what system you need to make sure you don't get an energy bill again. Don't go with the door-to-door solar guy who says he's got a fix for anything, because there's not a fix for anything. 816-540-7057. The guys who will shoot you straight did my roof, Royal Roofing and Solar. Again, it's roofedbyroyal.com. Celebration in mind, or maybe you just want a piping hot pizza. Fun House Pizza. 50 Highway in Lee's Summit, 7 Highway in Blue Springs. funhousepizza.com. Get your order in and stop by and pick it up. I think they even deliver, don't they?
Yeah.
All right. Always looking for delivery, guys. So if you got a kid who needs a job, have him go see Jim Dingman. 50 Highway in Lee's Summit, 7 Highway in Blue Springs. And, of course, if you've got a birthday party, the kids love Funhouse Pizza. You got your Little League Baseball team meeting coming up. Maybe you're going to, watch the NCAAs all the way down to the Final Four, and you got a party you want to do with that. Funhouse Pizza is the place to do both. 50 Highway, Lee Summit, 7 Highway, Blue Springs. Order online at funhousepizza.com. So I talk about this a lot because, it's really starting to get on my nerves. What hill do you want to die on? And we asked that of the Democrats, but let's talk about it in terms of you and me, because we just voted for another president, a new old president, which is interesting too, because he has perspective like Grover Cleveland had perspective. He was a president, he sat on the sidelines for 4 years, and then he got to run again, and he won.
Yep.
So that's a very interesting perspective that he has. But in terms of what hill we wanted to die on, when we were talking about this for 4 years, going through the years of Joe Biden, I think our hills to, I'll tell you mine, you can tell me yours. I wanted the southern border fixed, right? Both human and drugs, right? The human invasion that we had and the drug invasion that we still have of fentanyl that's killing people in this country, I wanted that to stop. I wanted to get energy independent again. It chapped my ass like you can't imagine that Trump got us to energy independence to where we didn't have to rely on the Middle East, places that don't like us very much, and we were able to sustain ourselves. We had a full strategic reserve. And then Biden comes in and he wants to push us toward things that we know are fantasy. Wind and solar was going to take over our entire economy. That pipeline, that's the first thing we're going to X out of here. We're going to make you drive an electric car by 2035. That was all fantasy stuff. So that was my hill to die on. Get us back to energy independence. And then tamp down the world. Remember when Donald Trump left? How many wars did Donald Trump start?
0, I think.
Yeah. And so here we are now, and we've got fighting going on in Europe. We've got fighting going on in the Middle East. Where does it end? So those were my hills. And I know there were some other ones. There were some issues that I know that you felt strongly about. If you had to say, what was your hill to die on, what would it be?
I mean, I'm not a single issue voter, but if I was, it'd probably be on abortion. But, you know, similarly important, I would say immigration would be pretty important to me.
Yeah.
And then the economy. But the economy, I think it's overblown. I mean, a lot of people vote on the economy, but how much control does the president really have in a lot of stuff?
True.
You know, it's not as simple, you know, even...
He gets the blame or the credit.
Yeah, exactly. So... But certainly immigration is something that the president has a lot of control over, and Trump proved that by doing all these things as soon as he got into office that Biden said he couldn't do because he needed Congress, and they tried to blame Trump for that, for tanking that bill, that crappy bill that they tried to push through. But, you know, abortion is a big one too. I mean, if I had to pick one, it'd probably be that. And, you know, Trump is teasing some of this IVF stuff, which is really troubling. So I hope that he lays off of that because that's not a strong issue for the pro-life movement. He's going to lose a lot of support based on that. Obviously, he doesn't have to run again, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But that is not a popular topic with the pro-life crowd. So I hope he doesn't go through with it, but we'll see. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's important, but it's still just politics. You know, you gotta be invested in it, but not treat it like your God. You know, you gotta not treat it like it's the most important thing in the world. You know, because it's not.
Well, 77 million of us voted for Donald Trump, and as we've talked about, a lot of these issues that we talk about are literally 90-10. It's like if you ask 10 people out on the street, 9 of them are going to say, "Oh, that's a no-brainer. That's common sense." And one will. There's always one, right? And the Democrats are siding with the one in almost everything that's happening. I just don't think they get it. And it's going to be interesting to see where we go in the next year and a half, because we're always less than 2 years away from the next midterm election. And if they want to keep dying on these hills that they're dying on, I can't see that as, oh, yeah, they're so right about that. We need to elect more Democrats.
Yeah.
Remember what happened in the election? What was it, like 90% of the counties went more red?
Yeah, I think maybe even higher than that.
90-10.
Let me see if I can find that map.
Yeah.
Because,
well, you know, if you were a lawyer in court, this goes way back. This is like intro to law or whatever. We're doing a lot of intro classes here today. Trial strategy tells you to do one of 3 things. If the facts are on your side, pound the facts. If the law is on your side, pound the law. And if neither are on your side, pound the table. And that's what the Democrats are doing. They are pounding the table left and right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of different maps here. Not the one that I'm looking for. But we've all seen it.
The point is, the country shifted to the right in this
100%,
election.
Yeah. And, you know, they're making a big mistake, too, of really hanging on to some of this identity politics stuff. I mean, that stuff is over, man.
It is over.
And they really need to let it go and move on. Talk about the economy, talk about foreign policy or whatever. Abortion is a big winning issue for them because people are just misguided and misled on that topic for whatever reason. And the right wing and the Republicans are not educating people on abortion properly. It's a big opportunity for the Democrats to take advantage of that, and they're not doing it. They're sticking with the identity politics, the woke stuff, and it's just not going to do well for them. They're going to run Kamala Harris again in 2028. Give me a break.
Have you heard that? I can't believe that.
Well, she's, ostensibly still the leading candidate, but, who cares?
Maybe the Maine governor will run.
Yeah.
I doubt that. But what they're hanging their hat on, I mean, it seems to me anyway, is if they're going to criticize Elon Musk and everything that the Trump administration is doing to shed light on all this stuff, they must be for waste, fraud, and abuse.
Right. Yeah, it's not a good look.
It is really not a good look, especially when two of the presidents that you think did a really great job, Clinton and Obama, went after waste, fraud, and abuse, and these same Democrats did not make a sound.
You want me to play this clip?
Yeah, play the clip.
It start at the beginning. It's like 9 minutes long.
Yeah, we're going to get out of it on suicide dance.
Democrats who are unhappy about what Elon Musk and DOGE are doing should perhaps keep in mind that cutting government waste, fraud, and abuse is popular. So popular, in fact, that previous Democratic leaders campaigned on ending waste, fraud, and abuse. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt posted a reminder of this on X as a warning to modern Democrats that perhaps they should listen to themselves. Let's watch.
Budget reform is not an option. It's a necessity.
The American people are entitled to transparency.
We can't sustain a system that bleeds billions of taxpayer dollars on programs that have outlived their usefulness or exist solely because of the power of politicians, lobbyists, or interest groups.
They're entitled to be able to figure out where their dollars are going, and they're entitled to accountability.
Wow.
To make sure that we're using the dollars for what we said it was for.
We are going to go through our federal budget, as I promised during the campaign, page by page, line by line, eliminating those programs we don't need and insisting that those that we do need operate in a sensible, cost-effective way.
Mainstream media figures continue to clash with Republicans over what DOGE is doing. Let's watch CNN's fiery conversation with Representative Tim Burchett.
These are bloated programs. You have no-show employees that are angry that they're having to go back to work, that they've moved, and they're not.
No one's disagreeing. There's bloat and waste.
Jobs were.
No one's disagreeing.
Well, then why are y'all not exposing it? Have y'all even talked about? Hey, Mozambique, we sent them $10 million for circumcisions. Okay. I mean, goodness gracious, ma'am, Americans are paying.
We've been covering at length
salaries.
Where the money is going to.
No, you haven't. All y'all do is run down Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and you continuously do this, and that's why your ratings are in the tank, ma'am.
All right, Congressman Tim Burchett, we're going to leave it there. I do appreciate your time coming on and having this conversation. Thank you very much.
Not to be left out, here is one tech titan's take.
Look, what I don't like about what's going on is I just view this as, well, let's watch the Democratic Party commit suicide. And like, I've been a Democrat most of my life. I kind of view myself as outside it, but I don't like watching the Democrats just commit suicide. And what I see is most of the country doesn't really, at this point, given the fraud, waste, and abuse we know is there, 90% of the country is like, get rid of that fraud, waste, and abuse. And I just view this as yet another example of the progressive left boxing themselves into a suicide dance.
There you go. So what are they doing? And we continue to play clips on this. They peddle fear. You got that one?
Yeah, I got to pull it up.
Let's start with the eye chart.
They peddle fear. Here it comes.
Yeah, got to play and got to skip the ad.
I should have more. Yeah, I should have more dialogue in the middle.
No, it's okay. We're just going to let it sit. We're going to sit quietly. No, here we go. Hit the buttons.
Wrong. It's illegal. USAID was established by an act of Congress, and it can only be disbanded by an act of Congress.
Spend that money. Spend it.
Stopping this will require action by the courts and for Republicans to show up and show courage and stand up for our country.
We're here today not only to fight for federal employees who dedicate themselves every day to a humanitarian task. We are here to save lives because that is what AID does. You name it, AID is there.
Yeah,
in
for
the
everything.
fight against HIV, in the fight to protect the Uyghur population in China, in the fight to protect refugees, in the fight to make sure that there's food security everywhere. AID is there. It is the lead development agency in the world. And no one elected Elon Musk to dismantle it.
Mr.
We
Tough
are
Guy.
going to fight in every way we can. In the courts, in public opinion, with the bully pulpit, in the halls of Congress, and here at AID itself.
You're going to get a lot of this from Congress
We are
people. I
not
don't know
going
how
to
much
let this.
you want to let this roll. Or,
we can.
Yeah,
you
but
get the idea.
You get the idea. That's what they're talking about. And they use what we call play number 2 a lot. And while you're getting that clip, let me remind you that the Democrat playbook is only 5 plays. And they use it for any issue that comes up. The first one is it's racist. How many times have you heard that? The second one, play number 2, is somebody has something you don't have, and that's not fair. Number 3 is global warming. They blame everything on global warming, climate change. We've already covered that today. Blame Trump is number 4, and there's nothing to see here. You know, when they have power and you've got a guy running around the White House who is obviously not in charge. He's the smartest guy running circles around us. Nothing to see here. So this is play number 2, and they're using that a lot now. Somebody has something you don't have, and that's not fair.
It's really important to talk about the impacts that this spending and tax package will have on the American public. This whole thing feels a bit like a scam. That this is a government that is being handed over to the billionaire class in order to operationalize government to make money for the very, very wealthy, and for the rest of us to pay the price.
Hundreds of billions of dollars from Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act subsidies, and food assistance. They are slashing funding for cancer research and disaster recovery and schools and national parks and VA clinics. They are laying off thousands of employees at federal agencies, 1/3 of whom are veterans.
They're going to come after the services that keep our veterans housed, our communities healthy, our children educated. All of it is on the chopping block.
It's a Trojan horse effort to amass savings off the backs of everyday people to pour into tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans who don't need help. We need to resist it in every way we can.
We're going to shine a light on this floor on the destructive agenda of the Republicans as the debate continues. We are going to do everything we can to stop that.
Yeah, well, you keep doing that, and we'll see how that works out for you. I mean, of all the things, first of all, anytime that the Republicans want to cut anything, they cut it from 6% growth to 3% growth, and we're killing children and old people. That's what they'll say. Money cut out of education. How much money have we spent on school districts like Kansas City and St. Louis, and what kind of a return are we getting for that money? Our education system is going down. What? More billions? $1 trillion? How much do we have to spend?
It's never enough.
It's never going to be enough for these people.
That's part of it, is that it's just like the racism angle or the victimhood narrative. It's never enough, because then they would have nothing to complain about. So if their argument is that more money is needed to fix the problem because we're just not spending enough, we just don't care enough, then it's never going to be enough, because then their problem will be solved, and if their problem is solved, they have nothing to campaign on.
I mean, we always simplify it. We take it down to the studs on this. Our government costs us $7 trillion a year. We've taxed to the max. I mean, I guess we could always raise taxes. You want your taxes raised? Do people want their taxes raised? We took in a record $5 trillion. Our government costs $7 trillion. So that $2 trillion difference, it goes to the debt. And the debt is now a bulbous $36 trillion. And it's like, well, he did it. He did it. He did it. I mean, that's what kids do on the playground in grade school. He did it. No, he did it. Well, now you got a guy who says enough is enough. Let's get going the other way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great. I mean, he spent more than anybody in his first term, and it was one of the big problems that we had with the first Trump term. So we'll see what the numbers look like, at the end of the 4 years in terms of how much he was actually able to cut and how much of a dent it made, but in the spending. But we all know that spending is the problem. It's not revenue. It's not that the government's not bringing in enough money, that the rich are not paying their fair share. It's that we're spending too much. So.
Boy, if we just tax corporations, that would change everything. Corporations don't pay any taxes.
Yeah.
Well, let's do that. Pick a corporation out there that you would want to tax. There's a bunch of them. Pick one.
I don't know. One of the bad ones.
I don't care. Just name a national corporation.
Let's tax McDonald's.
Okay, McDonald's. I just bought breakfast at McDonald's. I think it was like under $6, and I had an Egg McMuffin and a coffee. Okay, so if you tax McDonald's at a confiscatory rate, because no rate that's low is going to be happy for Democrats. They want it taxed up here. How much will it be? How much do you want to pay for a Big Mac? Because it always filters down to the end user. Think about that when they're bloviating that, we got to raise taxes on corporations. Well, first of all, corporations make products and services that you will be paying more for. And then think about this. If you have a 401k, you own a piece of those stocks.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a problem in itself. You got to diversify.
Yeah,
because you never know what's going to happen.
What do you think of Elon Musk's idea on DOGE to give $5,000 rebate checks to taxpayers?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of putting a Band-Aid on like a leg that's falling off. You know what I mean? I felt the same way about the stimulus checks in COVID. But, at least this is semi-real. COVID was just kind of fake from the beginning.
Well, it was all fake. I mean, the trillions of dollars he spent, we didn't have. We just made it up.
Right, exactly. I mean, would it be nice to have a $5,000 check? Of course. Of course, it'd be great. But, I mean, it's kind of secondary to the problem of just getting this under control, because you can send $5,000 checks all you want. I mean, if it's still 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, everything's going to cost 3 times as much, and nobody's going to be able to save for a house. Nobody's going to be able to afford a house. Nobody's going to be able to afford retirement or any kind of savings, okay, what's the point?
Well, I didn't get any of that COVID money because I'm rich. And they didn't send it to rich people. But he says this $5,000 is going to every taxpayer. And my feeling on it is the same. I mean, it's basically what you expressed. But if they send me a $5,000 check, I'm probably going to spend it. Or, knowing me, I'm going to save it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we get $5,000, I'll probably put most of it. I'll buy gold, or I'll buy crypto, or I mean, that's kind of where I'm at now. Is stocks, crypto, gold.
Yeah.
Save real estate, future. Is a big one, hoping to buy some land at some point. But just I have savings accounts and I have retirement accounts and stuff. But the idea of just putting money into a Vanguard, mutual fund or something like that, that's 50 years out of style. I mean, in my opinion, you can do that, but you just have to diversify. You have to have other things going on.
So the bottom line is you're spending the $5,000 check.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I would too.
I
think it's a bad idea, but I'd do it.
I've heard people saying funny things though, that they'll just spend it on the dumbest crap that they possibly can. just buy ammo or which is not dumb. That's a smart thing to spend money on. But they'll just buy gold chains or a flamethrower or something like that.
Well,
as Elon Musk would, right? Not flamethrower.
Before we leave you in this segment, this is something that we may come back to, and I heard Gary McNamara talking about this. Gary, one of the hosts of Red Eye Radio overnights on Cumulus Media, great talk show host. If you're up late at night, listen to Gary and Eric because they do a fantastic job cutting through the BS on a lot of this stuff. Well, his congressperson is Jasmine Crockett. He's in her district literally by 3 streets. He said, like 1,000 yards, I'm in her district. And I told Gary, I said, you should run against her. That would be funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to do that or not. But Jasmine Crockett may become a recurrent actor on this thing because she definitely suffers from TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, and the Chicken Little thing that you're going to have going on there, because it is tough to take the Chicken Little, the sky is falling hyperbole seriously. So here she is. Meet Red Eye Radio host Gary McNamara's congressperson, Jasmine, boy, do I have large fake eyelashes, Crockett.
You know, the lack of cohesiveness on that side is why this has been the most unproductive Congress. People all over X and everything is like, well, they don't deserve anything. They're so unproductive. Let me tell you, the people that y'all keep putting in charge are the reason that we are unproductive, because they don't understand how to govern. And honestly, they don't even have a will to govern. And the fact that they are allowing somebody who basically is a shadow president to come out and tell them what to do, including Donald Trump, because listen, we know that Elon, as they have touted about how they need to get rid of the immigrants. Let me be clear. Elon cannot become president of the United States because he is an immigrant who has gained U.S. citizenship later on in life. So he's not qualified to be, or he's not allowed to be under our Constitution. So instead, he decided that he was going to buy a president. And right now he is pulling all the strings on Trump.
Boy, isn't that smart?
She's very upset.
He bought a president.
Did you see that Elon had another kid?
I did.
Yeah. And I saw a funny meme that was like, he truly is African American because this is a little, it's a little spicy, but he truly is African American because he has like 12 kids by 8 different women or something like that.
Wow. He could play in the NFL.
Yeah. That's like Tyreek Hill level.
Exactly. Tyreek Hill's cousin there is Elon Musk. Well, a vasectomy goes a long way, but he's got billions of dollars. He doesn't care. He can afford it. So Gary McNamara's congressperson, she may we may follow her a little bit because she's so smart. In fact, I think she's read the Constitution. She quoted from it.
Yeah, she did.
So it's amazing. She read the Constitution. Okay, so Dale's Body Shop, Blue Springs, proud to be a sponsor of Dale Carter's America, the original Dale's Collision Repair Shop. It's in Blue Springs on 40 Highway. He's been fixing banged up cars for 37 years, and I'll bet with all the weather that we've had, he's definitely full there. But he'll make room for your car as well if you bang it up. When that wrecker says, hey, where we're taking this thing, take it to Dale's Body Shop. Trusted experts, collision repair, done the right way. The products that they need to fix your car are bought locally. It's not some out-of-town franchise. That's not where your dollars are going. And Dale Reynolds is going to be here for years to come. And if there's a problem with that car, he will stand behind it. Dale's Body Shop, Blue Springs, serving the Kansas City area since 1987, taking care of customers, taking care of you. Thank you, Dale, for being part of this. Two guys that are kind of tied together, because when you get in a wreck, if you've followed our advice, you're going to call Bob Watson first before you do anything, and that's State Farm Insurance, 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance. If it's important to you to insure, Bob Watson will get it done for you. Bundle your home and car insurance and save even more. Insurance is one of those things. You try and get the best deal that you can get. But ultimately, when you need to use it, that's when the test happens, right? You get one of these low-dough deals where people speak English as the fourth language when you call the 800 number. That's not really going to help you in an emergency situation. You want State Farm, the name you know, and Bob Watson's been repping State Farm in the Kansas City area for 50 years. Licensed in both Missouri and Kansas. Like a good neighbor, Bob Watson is there. This is kind of where the podcast meets my show on KFKF, because if you listen to my show on KFKF, one of my favorite things to do is when there's a funny clip from Steve Harvey's Family Feud, it finds a way onto the show.
Love that show.
I love Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
I think he's really, really funny.
Yeah.
So going through and finding clips for today's Dale Carter's America, I ran across this. So with apologies to Steve Harvey and the folks at the Feud, this is something, have you seen this clip?
I have, just when I was prepping for the show.
Okay. We call this the Democrat Feud. So going out on a light note, roll a tape.
Top 4 answers on the board. Name the first thing you would do if you woke up in jail.
I take responsibility for everything I didn't do.
She should be in jail.
Call my lawyer.
Shifty shift. If he weren't in the halls of Congress, he'd be in jail.
Well, when we have the discussion about who's responsible,
Cry.
You know who's further left than crazy Bernie? Kamala.
I would regret what I did.
Just take AOC plus 3.
Ask what happened.
Hunter, you're a loser.
Name the first thing you do if you woke up in jail.
What am I doing here?
Let's not kid ourselves. Joe is shot.
Name the first thing you would do if you woke up in jail.
Pee myself.
Brian Chuck, Crazy Nancy.
I don't know. It made me laugh. Hopefully it made some folks laugh here.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. And if you have any input, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us on the Facebook page at Dale Carter's America. How else can they get to us?
DaleCartersAmerica@gmail.com.
All right. We'd love to hear from you. Next week on the podcast, hopefully we're going to have a special guest that's going to tie to Kansas City, and we'll shift the focus from domestic, if we can, I mean, the news obviously dictates what we're going to do, to what's going on overseas and foreign relations, particularly with the Russia-Ukraine war and what's going on in the Middle East. And if you have a topic you'd like us to explore, reach out to us as well. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, from the massive studio complex in Raytown, Missouri, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.